Penn State men's hockey can do it. They can win it all here at the Frozen Four, but they certainly need to address a couple of concerns going into the final stretch of the season.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked on to Penn State men's hockey, and thank you so much for checking out this edition of Locked On Nittany Lions, the #1 Penn State sports podcast out there. My name is Zach Seyko. I'm your host of the show. He is Eric Ohlson, color commentator for the broadcast team, but now we'll step into the play-by-play role. So you get to hear Eric on the call for this Frozen Four tournament. And we're going to break it all down here. Penn State's chances in the Frozen Four, the matchup first that they go through against the Boston Terriers, and then what would their chances be against the likes of Western Michigan, the juggernaut that is Denver. We're going to talk about it all right here. Again, Eric, thanks so much for the time as always, and let us know your thoughts down in the comment section, any predictions that you have, or just how great historical this season's been for Penn State. And Eric, I think it's fair to begin there. That Yukon game, it was obviously a great win. Matt DiMarsico with the goal, Serrato with a behind-the-back pass, and history is made. But there was a lot of heavy lifting that went into the one because of Arsenii Sergeev. If he doesn't have the game of his life, I don't know that Penn State gets into the Frozen Four, but sometimes you just need someone to carry your team to get to that point in time. What is your ultimate takeaway from that, give or take 10 to 15 minutes, where it did feel like UConn was in control, but Penn State ultimately prevails?
It was one heck of a hockey game. Both teams trying to get to the Frozen Four for the first time, and both teams really left it all out there. Arsenii had to, I won't call it a stolen game, but he had to play his best. And, Penn State came out flying in the first period, and they easily could have gotten 2, maybe 3 goals. But Callum Tongue was excellent for the Huskies. Yeah. And it kind of felt like, once they didn't get that lead and build on it, that, okay, this is probably gonna be a pretty tight hockey game. Because I think if they get 2, maybe 3 goals when the crowd is just rolling, they're rolling lines, they were racking up shots, it could have been a different hockey game. But UConn needed to survive that period. They did, and it was 1-1, after the first, and from there, it was a fight. That was a heavyweight fight between two teams, and. A fluky goal in the second period where it goes off Jared Crespo's arm, takes a left turn, bounces off the crease and in. Sergeev had no idea where the puck was. So UConn goes up 2-1, and then JJ Weebush with an absolute snipe to tie it at 2. Just moments after that, it was back and forth. But then in the third period, UConn got to its heavy, sustained cycle game, checking game. And you could tell Penn State was kind of running out of gas. That's been their kryptonite a bit this season, when teams play that uber physical, just try to smother you and wear you down type of hockey game. And you could see for long stretches of time, they were getting hemmed in their own zone. They couldn't get the puck out. And that's when UConn started to rack up shots and long sustained shifts. So for Penn State, it was a lot of defend and change, defend and change, defend and change. They couldn't really go attack. And you need Sergeev to be your guy. And they blocked a lot of shots too. And it felt like once they got past the 10-minute mark, okay, it's next goal to wins territory. And then once they got about 5 minutes left, it was, let's get to overtime here, because they could use a break. And overtime happens. It's a little more of the same. They had more attack in them. With the reset in the intermission, certainly had some chances, and then UConn got back to that sustained puck possession.
Yeah.
And Sergeev making outstanding saves. Jared Crespo saving a goal right in front of the crease, where Muldowney, arguably the one player you don't want to have one-on-one with your goalie right on the crease, gets the puck. Crespo swings his stick around and somehow gets a piece of it with the shaft of his stick. To get the block to send it up and out of play. Otherwise, it's probably game over. UConn's going to the Frozen Four. But they stayed with it. And then Nick Fascia with the highlight reel hit that I know went echoed through, the social media hockey world. And immediately after that hit, Serrato goes the other way, pings the crossbar. That's the moment where you kind of felt like, okay, they might have something in them here. That was the spark that got the bench going, that got the building going again on Penn State's side. And it wasn't too long after that where Serrato makes the play that he does, and the puck leaves the zone. He's right there at the blue line to make sure it doesn't go further. He's kind of waiting, and the Yukon defenseman's kind of coming up the wall, but not very aggressively. Serrato sees the open ice, just pokes it ahead, chases it down. DiMarsico joins the rush, and the rest is history, like you said. So, we've had a lot of conversations about the team's mental toughness, and I think they showed it there. You can draw comparisons to overtime against Ohio State, and we were talking about that on the broadcast, where they learned a lesson from that overtime. Could they apply it? And they needed to apply it against UConn, and they did, and now they're rewarded with their first trip to the Frozen Four.
Does that concern you, Eric, going into, as we wrap up this first segment before we actually preview the game that they are playing? Because that, again, UConn looked like it was in control from that, most of the, if not all of that third period, and then most of that overtime, most of the overtime as well. And that's why I said sometimes you just need a player to step up and give you that elite performance, that historic one that Sergeev did. But he's not going to be able to have that kind. It's just human nature. It's not that he can't do it ever again, but to do it on a consistent basis is difficult, especially when the margin of error is so razor thin. You're not going to be able to do that against Boston. I know either whomever they face, Western Michigan or Denver in that hypothetical championship. You're not going to get away with it every single time. So, Eric, does that concern you as the competition gets a little tougher here?
No, it's not concerning. There was one hockey game, and now you got to go play another hockey game. And hockey games are kind of a microcosm because one game is not going to be the same as the next. So many things, there's so many elements in a hockey game that are in your control, out of your control, and your goalie's another player. And sometimes you can play a great hockey game and lose. And sometimes you don't play a great hockey game and you win. And sometimes you play great and you win. Sometimes you don't play great and you lose. That's kind of the way hockey goes. It's one of those sports where it's not like, hey, if we go out and do X, Y, and Z, we are going to win the hockey game. There's too many variables. And your goalie is a variable. Sergeev played outstanding, like he's done for so many games in the second half of the season. They are not in this position without him. So he certainly has it in him to go out and have another performance like that. And I think he's going to need to play great. No doubt. He can't be an average goalie in this matchup against Boston and Penn State win, most likely. Again, anything can happen. But I don't think it's concerning. Look, they went out and dominated Maine on Friday in Allentown. For me, that was the one game where it's like, ooh, I don't know about this one. But if they get through it, I love their chances.
Still to come on this episode of Locked On Nittany Lions, more about this matchup between Penn State and the Boston University Terriers. That is on the way next here after the break. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. There's nothing like the energy of a live game, whether it's catching a last-minute MLB showdown or soaking in the excitement of an NBA matchup. But finding great seats at a great price, that used to be a challenge. Until you use Game Time. Game Time makes scoring last-minute tickets easier than ever. Prices actually drop as the event gets closer, and with their all-in pricing, you see the total cost up front, so there's no surprises at checkout. Here's why you will love using Game Time. Get last-minute deals. You can save up to 60% off buying last-minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, you name it. You can grab last-minute seats for anything, for a Major League Baseball game, for an NBA game, for a hockey game. Save big with their zone deals. You actually get discounts and then based on the sections of the arena. You'll get peace of mind. With seat views before you buy, no surprise fees, and lowest price guaranteed, you can book with total confidence. Their lowest price guarantee means that you never worry about overpaying. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that is code LOCKEDONCollege. LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
And little did I know, they would go out and dominate Maine, and UConn would be the one that was really the tough fight, because against Maine, they played Penn State hockey better than Maine played Black Bears hockey. They were the more physical team against the Black Bears. They got to the dangerous areas of the ice. Albin Boya is an outstanding goalie, and they got 4 past him plus the empty net because they got to their dangerous spots on the ice. Maine could not defend them. They played fast. They played physical, scored on special teams, kept Maine off the board with special teams. And the one goal that beat Sergeev was a fluky goal that he didn't see, that hit a stick, rainbowed over his head, and went down his back. So that was a great game. And look, you're playing a game where your season's on the line. Both teams are trying to go to the Frozen Four. That was a heavyweight fight. So to me, there isn't anything that's really concerning. Again, their kryptonite has been teams that play that really tough physical defending game and kind of smother you with their forecheck offensively. That's not Boston's game. Certainly could be Denver's game. Maybe a little bit of Western. But they're just focused on Thursday night against Boston, I can tell you that. And what an atmosphere it was in that building, the PPL Center, when DiMarsico scores that goal, the celebration, being in the locker room after, the trip back, arriving at Pagula and having hundreds of students there waiting for you, the little celebration with the team there as the rain is coming down and they walk off the bus with the trophy. And it was just unbelievable, a moment that no one's going to forget.
Now let's pivot to the game that is on their radar before, yes, Western Michigan, or they could face Denver, as those are the teams in the Frozen Four here. Boston U, the team that they are playing Thursday night, Thursday, April 10th, 8:30 Eastern time. Eric will be on the call in St. Louis, and it's going to be at the Enterprise Center. This Boston U team obviously did not get here by accident. Impressive run. Now, they did finish third in the Hockey East standings, and they actually got bounced in the Hockey East tournament. So this was an automatic bid, but then they caught lightning in a bottle in the NCAA tournament. They absolutely blew the doors off of Ohio State 8-3, and then went on to win the regional final accordingly, and now they're here. So this is a team that obviously deserves a lot of respect in the pairwise. In the pairwise, they're ranked 5th. They're 23-13-2 overall. That's the overall record. Penn State coming into this one ranked in the pairwise 11th. So like I said, there's not much that separates them there, but know that they're facing a top 5 team in this moment that has a lot of star caliber players.
Yeah, it's a great Terriers team, without a doubt. Their third straight trip to the Frozen Four. Their head coach, Jay Pandolfo, who's a 2-time Stanley Cup winner, played college hockey, went to the Frozen Four 4 times. So he, in his own pedigree, has been there 7 times now. So he knows how to get teams there. They're still trying to get over the hump in those last 3 years. Now trying to win a national championship. So last year they fell in overtime to Denver, who would go on to win the national championship. 2 years ago, they got thumped by Minnesota, and then Minnesota would lose to Quinnipiac in overtime in that championship. So it's their third kick at the can now to do that, and it's a great team. Look, they have one of the most dangerous offenses in the country. They have the number 1 power play in the country right now. So they are dangerous. They have a lot of guys that can burn you. Cole Iserman, Cole Hutson.
I was going to say, tell me about the Hutson brothers.
Yeah. There's something about that Hutson bloodline, because their brother Lane, who's playing for Montreal in the NHL right now, he is going to be a Calder Trophy finalist for your Rookie of the Year in the NHL. He had a great stint at BU when he was playing college hockey. I mean, BU had Lane Hutson, Macklin Celebrini, who is probably going to win the Calder this year with San Jose, and now they have more Hutsons playing for him. So these guys are unbelievable. And Cole Hutson on defense, the way he plays, he is a legitimate threat to go score. He plays fast. He's highly skilled. You can probably draw comparisons to a guy like a Quinn Hughes when he played at Michigan. Just that elite skating ability, offensive mindset ability. So he's
a distributor too.
Yeah, he is. He is a great hockey player. And then you have Cole Iserman as a freshman who I believe has 23 goals on the season. You have Jack Hughes, not related to the other Hughes brothers in the NHL. His dad is actually Kent Hughes, the general manager of Montreal. So there's more connection to the Canadians there. But these guys are great offensively. They've scored, I believe, seven more goals than Penn State on the year. Penn State's given up 5 more goals, I believe, than BU. So their numbers are really, really similar, actually, when you look at the full course of the season. Offensively, defensively, special teams. The one difference there is, BU's power play is about, I think, like 5 percentage points higher than Penn State's. They've scored maybe 5 or 6 more power play goals than the Nittany Lions. So it very well could be a high scoring game. Also could be a bit defensive game. You've got Sergeev for Penn State, and then for BU you have Mikhail Yegorov, who was playing in the USHL this year and then signed with Boston in January. So he joined the Terriers late January. I think he signed like 3 days later. He's playing against Boston College. And that was a game where they lost 2-0. And then since then, they'd only lost 5 times the rest of the year. So his numbers, he finished the regular season top 10 in both goals against average and save percentage for goalies. This guy is really, really good. He's a 2nd-round draft pick, 6'5". So just like Arsenii, he's a big goaltender, takes up a lot of space. And he's a huge reason why Boston went on a great run and is in this position now to try and win a national championship. So you got 2 great offenses, 2 great goalies. Something's got to give. It's going to be a heck of a matchup. But Boston definitely has a lot of elements that if you don't play a good game defensively, your goaltender is really going to have to stand on his head.
And that's what I was going to follow up with, because as you compare and contrast the 2 teams, there's not a lot that separates them in terms of overall ability, overall talent, the style of play. It's experience. That's going to be the differentiator here, where Penn State is making its first ever. And that's the same for Western Michigan too. So they got to go through a similar setup with Denver. And I wish them well. I wish them the best of luck. But in Penn State's case, Boston U has made it 3 consecutive times. Penn State is making it for the first time ever. So I'm not trying to imply that, hey, Penn State, can't be a favorite in this game, or that they don't have a chance. I think they do. This is a very even playing field here with these final 4 teams. However, this is where experience is going to separate them. So Eric, how are you approaching that? How are you factoring this into the matchup where Boston's been there, coach has been there, players have definitely been there because they've done this 3 times in a row now. So there's not a drop off. Everybody knows the standard, whereas this is new territory for Penn State.
Yeah, I think it's a question of, how much of that is a factor, and maybe it is. But you can look at Allentown and say, hey, Penn State had a lot of guys who never played NCAA tournament hockey. Some guys who had 2 years ago. But the lights weren't too big for them. The stage wasn't too big for them. This is just a stage that's a little bit bigger. And yeah, you're not going to have 7,000 or 8,000 Penn State fans in the stands, most likely, cheering you on. So you're not going to quite have that home ice advantage. You're playing a great team, but you had to play 2 great teams in Allentown. They're just looking at it as this is another chance to go play a hockey game, and we got to play our game. And if we do, we're going to have a chance to win and play one more. So yeah, experience certainly could help you if you're Boston, but they also have a lot of talented freshmen too that haven't been in this situation. So you got a brand new goalie. So I think, I was watching back their game against Cornell, and I think they had said on the broadcast something like, Yegorov comes in, he didn't even know what the NCAA tournament was. Like, he's that new to college hockey.
Interesting.
Yeah. So there's all those variables, but what it boils down to is you just got to go play your hockey game. That's all you can do. And it's the most you can control. in a sport that is a lot of controlled and uncontrolled chaos. You just got to go play your game and see what happens. So, they will go through the regular routine on Thursday. Wednesday, they'll have practice and media session. Tomorrow's a practice at home. So on Tuesday, and you go from there. But I probably wouldn't put too much stock in the experience versus inexperience, because there's a lot of leadership on this team that has just said, look, we're going to do what we need to do. They've certainly got a little bit of advice on how to manage kind of the extra pomp and circumstance that goes with the Frozen Four. But again, once the puck drops on Thursday night, it's all about playing a hockey game.
Still to come on this episode of Locked On Nittany Lions. Can Penn State do it? Can Penn State win it all? Find out next after the break. Now let's look at the Frozen Four overall. I keep mentioning it. Western Michigan and Boston, they're going to play before Penn State, and then the winner will advance. And hopefully Penn State is able to advance past Boston U. They're either going to face Denver or Western Michigan. Now, I say I wish Western Michigan the best, but they're actually the highest ranked team left out of all of them, if you can believe that. Not in terms of the pairwise rankings. Denver's going to get a lot of credence going into this one because they're arguably the best, if not the best, men's hockey program in history. They just the Frozen Four almost seems like it's their tournament at this point in time. So that's why I think experience is it's at least a storyline. I don't know if it's maybe the biggest deal in the world, but it's certainly a storyline that, hey, Western Michigan, first time making it to the Frozen Four. Oh, Denver's been here a bunch of times. First time for Penn State. Hey, Boston U's been here 3 times consecutively. So at the end of the day, if it's Boston and Denver, go figure, because that would make a ton of sense here, just given the experience factor. But Penn State and Western Michigan certainly have the talent. Eric, it may be, like I said, there's not a lot that separates them. I think Penn State just as much of a fighting chance as anybody else, especially since, of course, they're here. But how would you maybe rank these teams in opposition to the pairwise? Because the pairwise are that neutral ranking. Is Western Michigan truly the best team, and is Penn State the lowest ranked team?
I think people would probably tell you Denver is the best team that's left.
It's fair.
Just the way they've been playing. That's a great team. But then you can make the case that the record doesn't lie. And look, Western beat them in the NCHC championship game in double overtime. So that's going to be one heck of a hockey game to watch that rematch. And, a game where Denver was up 3-0 after the second period. And it looked like, all right, they're about to cruise to another NCHC championship. And then Western, 3 goals in the third period to tie it, goes to double overtime. They get the win, their first ever NCHC championship. So 2 really good teams are going at it. Maybe lean Denver in that matchup just because they have the experience, they have skill, they have depth, they have really good goaltending. I think people might be saying kind of all roads lead to Denver in the national championship. So they're probably number one. After that, I really don't know. Look, every team, you don't get to the Frozen Four on a fluke. It's just not possible because you have to win. One, you have to make the tournament, and only 16 teams make the tournament. And then 2, you got to win 2 games to get there. And we saw what happened in the tournament this year. It was chaotic. It was absolutely chaotic. So many overtimes, so many upsets. You had all the Big Ten teams outside of Penn State out in the regional semifinals. Cornell upsetting Michigan State basically at the death with like 8 seconds left to go up. You had BU coming back and thumping Ohio State, rattling off 6 unanswered goals to win it 8-3. You had Minnesota going to overtime. A little bit of controversy there, losing in overtime. And then you still had more upsets along the way, and Cornell takes BU to overtime in its regional final. So you got to be a great hockey team to make it, without a doubt. So I can't really rank them 1 through 4 because I think it's just 4 very different teams, and this is why it's best on best with 4 teams. So we could be in for 2 great semifinals and then 1 great national championship too.
So Penn State can certainly win it all. They're not a stark underdog. I wouldn't, now granted, most people aren't going to argue that they are the favorite, but let's finish with this, Eric. Most teams would not want to play Penn State. They are the hottest team in the country. And sometimes when you're on a wave, you just ride the wave all the way to the shoreline. For Penn State, they have been a completely different team. So even though they might come into this with the fourth best resume, if you will, if you take away the first part of the season, there's really not much that separates any of these teams, especially. And then you might look at Penn State and say, well, if we're just considering the second half of the season, you could argue that Penn State is the clear-cut number one team just based on that. If we're taking away the learning experience, if you will, for a younger, inexperienced team, and now they're getting all the experience. So this is where it's going to pay off. You say experience, yes, it's important, but that's necessarily not going to decide a win or a loss in this situation. What is it about this Penn State team that can get them to the finals and then ultimately win them a Frozen Four?
You have to have belief, and this team does. You have to have total buy-in to your system and the things that make you successful. And that's why they're in this spot. They wouldn't be here without it. You need buy-in from everyone on the team to get it done. And it takes scoring goals, which they're getting. It takes great goaltending, which they've gotten. And you just have to keep rolling with what makes you successful. So against Boston, it's the most penalized team in the country. So if they take penalties, got to be able to capitalize on the power play, because special teams are going to make a huge difference, just like they did in the NCAA regionals. And, just go out and play your game. So they have as much of a chance as anyone to win a semifinal and then go win a national championship. And just because it's the first time that they're there doesn't mean the situation is going to be too big for them. I think they have a great mix of the young talent that doesn't know any better and the experienced talent that knows what it took to build those moments and get to this position. And now they're rewarded for it, finally going to the Frozen Four. And it's going to be one heck of a matchup. So can't wait for it. And they have a great chance. It's not to say they're guaranteed to win, guaranteed to lose. Again, anything could happen, but I think what this did, getting to the Frozen Four, it just legitimizes again what Penn State hockey is all about. And that's what Guy's been saying, over the last few days, where in the early stages of Penn State hockey, players were telling them, yeah, what you got looks great, but I don't want to come lose for 3 or 4 years. That's what recruits were telling them. You had people around the country saying, oh, Big Ten hockey, it's going to take you 3 years to win in the Big Ten. Well, they proved them wrong in the early days, and it was those alumni that built the foundation of, no,
absolutely,
this is what Penn State hockey is going to be. We can go out and win games. We're going to make noise. And they did. They make their first NCAA tournament, and they destroy Union. And then they go to a regional final against who? Denver. They end up losing that game. Next year, back in the NCAA tournament. Unfortunately, you have to run into another red-hot Denver team, and they end up losing in that regional semifinal. And then, they get to Allentown, thump Michigan Tech, lose to Michigan in overtime, and now they're in the Frozen Four. So Penn State hockey is winning hockey. They can win a national championship, but I think there's going to be a lot of people now realizing that if I want to go play great hockey, I don't necessarily have to go to Minnesota or Michigan or Denver or Boston College. I can go to Penn State and have a pretty good chance to win a national championship.
The Frozen Four, Thursday, April 10th, the two semifinal games with Penn State playing at 8:30 Eastern time, and then the championship on Saturday, April 12th. He is Eric Ohlson. The color commentator traditionally for the broadcast team is going to be on the play-by-play call. So you can listen to all of it, all of the coverage. He will be on site in St. Louis on gopsusports.com. That is where you can stream it live. Eric, thank you so much for the time. Here's to Penn State making its first ever Frozen Four and ultimately winning it. But thank you so much, as always, for the time, the analysis, and safe travels to St. Louis.
Yeah, thanks, Zach. Glad we're still talking hockey in April for the first time.
And again, thank you so much for making Locked On Nittany Lions your first listen and watch every single day. For your second listen and watch, got to check out Locked On NFL Draft with hosts Damian Parson and Keith Sanchez. As your favorite collegiate players get ready for the next level, all of your favorite Penn State Nittany Lions get the latest draft rankings, rumors, news every single day with Locked On NFL Draft. You can find Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts, and it's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day.